nothing against filtration if it's needed, and there's water that's polluted that needs it. But in our particular case, New York's water is the champagne of waters.
Because the water is still so very good, it's so high quality, it's a very worthwhile enterprise to try and keep it that way. What they really have in mind is, besides filtration, to have a large number of different chemicals treating the water.
There will be trucks coming in to maintain this arsenal of chemicals in our park.
The DEP just released at the beginning of the year a new environmental impact statement, a draft supplemental environmental impact statement for 3 sites for the Cortland Water Treatment Plant. Eastview in Westchester County, the Mashalou Golf Course, and the Harlem River site at Fordham Road in the river. The mayor will pick a site by June 30th.
The reason why I'm sitting on this rock right here is because the place where the city wants to build the filtration plant is right here on the other side of the fence. And if you look over here, these are the buildings along Gun Hill that will be most impacted. This is one of the very few mixed ethnic neighborhoods, working class neighborhoods in the city, where we've managed to maintain low-income housing and a very diverse population. The EIS is amazingly biased. It's so biased to convince people that the filtration plant should be built in Van Cortlandt Park. 26,000 people live wrapped around the southeast corner of Van Cortlandt Park.
Van Cortlandt Park is the 3rd largest park in New York City. The park has been in existence since 1888. This was actually land that was originally owned by the Van Cortlandt family, Jacobus Van Cortlandt, who was at one point the mayor of New York City. The park has over 800 woodlands and forests within it, as well as one of the most active recreational sites in New York City, where traditional and non-traditional sports are played. The first public golf course in the United States is actually here, Van Cortlandt House Museum, which is actually the oldest standing structure in the Bronx. When the Alienation Bill was passed in Albany, primarily with the support and the backing of the Bronx legislators, really the Bronx Democratic machine, in exchange for $200 million in park improvements for the borough of the Bronx, it really put a lot of people on notice in the sense of parks are for sale. It was a very, very close vote in the Assembly, but alas, it still passed, and it passed in the Senate. It's like DEP has been approved for the mortgage, but we really don't want to sell them the house.
In order to get permission to build it in a city park, they had to design it so it goes underground. An industrial facility under 16 inches, not 180 feet. 16 inches of dirt. You ever thought of a tree growing on 16 inches of dirt?
We have to take away precious urban parkland, which is irreplaceable. They have to dig this huge hole through bedrock, which will create a tremendous burden on the population around here during the 8 years of construction. They have to do that in order to pretend that the building isn't there. All of that blasting and drilling and chopping of rock and hauling it away.
And it's very simple. Protect that. You know, don't allow the forest to be cut down. Don't allow the wetlands to be paved over. Keep all those natural resources, and that will protect the water better than any filtration plant.
That I don't believe there should be a filtration plant at all, and that's a different issue, but seems that the extra trouble, and it could be very expensive extra trouble, of digging this deep hole can be totally avoided by putting the building in Westchester County and not in Van Cortlandt Park.
We already have the overhead L trains going by, and they're using that as a baseline for how loud the sound can be before mitigation. if there's a problem, it's going to be fixed. That's what DEP means by mitigation. But they can only mitigate 50% of the dust that's going to be blasted out of that hole.
The Northwest Bronx has one of the highest concentrations of asthma amongst children and adults in the United States. Those fumes are going to have a tremendous impact upon this very, very densely populated community.
There's going to be a lot of pollution. How are we going to open the windows when some kids have asthma? My brother has asthma, so it's like he could die. I have asthma, so if I have an asthma attack, I will go crazy.
But Montefiore and the Children's Hospital that was built in particular to deal with asthma is right there behind those trees.
This is an issue here that if you were going to be building this in Central Park, the neighbors of Central Park would absolutely make sure that it didn't happen in this enormous hole, which will be on each side as long as 2 football fields, one after the other. And then at its deepest point, it's 9 stories or 90 feet deep. When you build a basement like this, you deal with a phenomenon called hydrostatic pressure. It's very similar to what happens when you do scuba diving. But when you dive down, every 10 feet that you go, the water pressure builds up significantly. There'll be enormous pressure on the walls of the water wanting to get in. Even though very careful waterproofing will be done, cracks and openings will develop, and water is going to be seeping into that lower level. What you're buying is the mother of all leaky basements.
Now, most people believe that the city intends to pick the Mosholu Golf Course, but their environmental impact statement has made a compelling case for Eastview. The land in Eastview was purchased for building filtration plants. It's zoned for industrial use. It has the interconnections to all of the other city's water supply systems. And they can build it above ground, which makes it much less expensive and much easier to do. There's hardly anybody who lives within a quarter of a mile, and only a few people who live within a half a mile, and only 3,000 people live within a mile of the Eastview site. And their study has shown that, in fact, it would cost about $20 million less to build the plant in Eastview.
$290 million of that cost goes to the Kensico water tunnel, which they have to build anyway. They have to build it in order to repair the Delaware water tunnel.
The Eastview site would actually be over $300 million cheaper than the Mosholu Golf Course site.
To spend all this money, billions of dollars, on filtering water that's already clean, when we have big problems with the pipes, because that's the way we are getting the polluted water.
If they built at the Mosholu Golf Course in Van Cortlandt Park, there's also an impact on Jerome Park. They would have to construct a new shaft, at least 50 feet and possibly more, right across the street from Bronx Science. In Harris Park, they would have to construct a 250-foot-long tunnel from that shaft down to the New Croton Aqueduct. To do that, they would have to blast and drill and remove all of that material. This is right across the street from one of New York City's best high schools. They also have to tear up the streets, Goulden Avenue, and more of Harris Park to build 3 flow meter chambers and to make many interconnections to the city's water supply. Along Goulden Avenue, we have DeWitt Clinton High School, the Bronx High School of Science, Lehman College, Walton High School, PS 86, and the Armory. In the 19th century, the people who were engineers were also social planners, so they didn't just think about supplying water. They also thought about the needs of the population around it. So that's why the reservoirs always had public access. And when they built Jerome Park, they knew that it was going to be the centerpiece of the new community that would grow up around it, and they designed it to be a reservoir park. During World War II, the city fenced